Right. Okay, Amanda. What are we doing today?
Poetry,
Yeah. And why are we doing it today for everybody on Facebook, Amanda, and the world beyond?
because it's World Poetry Day.
Yeah. And how often does World Poetry Day happen, Amanda?
Once every 50 years.
Well, not quite, right?
No,
Uh,
once every year.
once a year. So I thought, well, we talked about this the other day, Gareth, and was wondering, didn't we, Amanda? We thought, well, since we're both writers and we live together, and what are we going to do, Amanda? We don't sit on the same Zoom, do we?
No, we've gone to different wings of the house now.
Yeah, well, everyone's wondering. We live in this little, gorgeous little creative apartment. It's full of creativity. I'm sat in the living room where you sat, Amanda.
In the next room.
Yeah, in the study. So I'm going to do some poetry tonight for you. Now, obviously, seriously, if anybody knows me and Amanda, they would know I've done to date 5 full-length poetry books and a couple of chapbooks and collaborations. And what have you wrote, Amanda, to date?
I have no idea. I just keep writing them and they just keep going and going into big black holes.
Well, I'll keep this as basic as I can, Amanda, and you'll probably correct me on this. I know you've done three, four, I think you've done 5 novels, 5 full-length novels, I'm right there, aren't you?
Sounds about right.
A couple of novellas, some of which are actually getting re-edited at the moment, but we'll talk about another day. And
Yeah.
you've done, how many full-length poetry books have you done? You've done 2, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right.
I thought I've my record you've done 2. And then plus you've done a chapbook with 2 chapbooks, split chapbooks with me. And you've also done, what many chapbooks you done by yourself, poetry wise? You done 1 or 2?
2,
Yeah,
possibly
2.
3, who knows?
No, it's 2 because you had one out last year. One went out just now, so we're talking about today, aren't you? So now, everyone's wondering what we're doing today. Of course, it's National Poetry Day. So what do we do on National Poetry Day, man?
Write novels.
What, read that, sit here, and everybody sat there listening to it, you reading out. Right, yeah, this is my new novel. It's called Ghost and Me. Yeah. I'm going to read all 55 chapters of it and stay here to midnight tonight reading it all out, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, some breaking the boundaries of Facebook Live, killing it, right? Literally. No, but seriously, what we're going to do, Amanda?
We're going to read some poetry.
Yep. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to read some up from our various collections, but to start with, Amanda, we're reading one that we wrote together, aren't we?
Yeah.
And this one came out from the chapbook we did last year because lockdown was all we could see. We nearly read out the poem, Amanda, didn't we? And Christmas in lockdown was also in the book we wrote together.
Yeah, that was like a fortune telling thing, wasn't it? Because we wrote that about, was it June or even before that last year?
Yeah, something like that territory.
And we never thought that one was going to come true, and it did, more or less.
Yeah. So we ended up, the one we're going to read today is called Alone Together. Now, I can't remember, how did this piece come about, Amanda? Because I could see what my bits came from. But you started this piece off then. And I know you asked me about it at the time to carry the piece on. What made you want to write this?
I think it was a couple of months in, and that was all zoomed out. And like the first few months, you just felt like you had to go to every single Zoom thing that was happening.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's been, to be honest with you, it's my side. I probably adapted it more than you have. I know you're not, I know as Amanda, she likes it, but she doesn't like it as much as me, if that makes sense, do you? So that's why. So this piece came from that. I know it did. So, okay, Alone Together.
Okay. One by one, faces appear on the screen. Some we've never seen before, others we knew in what feels like another life. As we prepare to begin another night where we've gathered virtually, so we can all be alone together.
One by one, looking at each other silently, like in a concentration camp, barely able to look up at the camera with a terrified stare of uncertainty. Our hair left to go wild out of our windows.
Staring into eyes, discerning emotions, smiles that don't reach further than our mouths, searching for signs, anything at all that someone somewhere feels the same, not wanting to be left behind, feeling like everyone else has moved on.
Catching tides in dreams through our words, booking opinion, what we are hearing, serenading each other in our time of need. lifting the lid, whether you lead or just watch, reaching out hope with everything you say, alone, together. See, we are very cheerful people, really, Amanda, aren't we? So,
Yeah, out of all the poems I've got lined up tonight, I think there's only one funny one and all the rest are depressing.
well, I've got a slightly hopeful one, but that's something new later. So, yeah.
Oh, I've got a
Okay.
hopeful one as well. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Is that the one where you're calling about saying everybody's dead?
Yeah, that's the hopeful one.
So you can see what we're like, innit? So everyone knows Amanda by now. She would know basically. She kills everyone off in her poems almost. She people die in it, Amanda, don't they? So
Yeah.
now, what we're going to do seriously, we're going to take turns on the rest of the article set now. We've got 4 poems each now. First one of mine, I'm going to read it and I'll start this off, is from my third poetry, full poetry at the birth of autumn. This one's called Hard Rock Village. And Hard Rock Village, if anybody doesn't know it, was briefly, basically as it was, a hard rock venue that was on Talbot Road in Stratford in the early 70s. And this is about that, really. And this is Hard Rock Village. When we were young, you used to sneak in frequently after mother and father was asleep, whispering to us who you just seen from Bowie on his alleged final tour, to Chuck Berry and his small band, who'd arrived on stage over an hour and a half late, only to get bottled off within 20 minutes of starting. Melanie, who sat on the edge of the stage, singing requests all night long until her voice eventually went, and the faces whom you laughed at ages afterwards when our drummer fainted and fell on his arse halfway through their set. Each night you were there, fever pitched to an electric ambience, stroked slight sunlight, mirrored the crowds queuing up the road to get inside, igniting your limitations of your own singing with each chord blasted out and each drum beat slightly out of tune or context, burning cold glass over yesterday's memories. Right, and that's my first piece done.
Okay, so my first piece before I get on to this, if you've ever heard any of Andy's poems that start with writing to an imaginary woman called Sarah, this is where this one started off. And it's called 10 Minutes with Kiefer. And so I don't get sued, I need to point out that I've never met Kiefer or harmed Kiefer in any way. So, do you remember, Kiefer, when I went to your gig and you sang every line of that love song while never taking your eyes off me? Do you remember when I found you backstage, like you were a lost boy, and I said you could stand by me? But as soon as we got started, neither of us were standing. We were doing it the cowboy way, with you watching yourself in the mirrors. You yelled, "We're running out of time," then left me alone. You only had 23 hours and 50 minutes left to save the country from terrorists. I had to tell Andy there was a big queue for the toilets, but he never knew. Do you remember the following morning? We bumped into you in Weatherspoons, and I had to act like last night didn't happen. Then later I tried to call you from a phone booth, but you never answered. You left me forsaken.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Now, if anyone's wondering there, any more eagle-eyed people about this, what made people know Amanda if they're Kiefer Sutherland fans like you from that poem?
There's a lot of film references in there. Some are well known than others, and some are a bit more obscure.
The cowboy way one is worth looking at the poster,
Yeah.
certainly.
People seem to like the cowboy way, especially women.
I'm saying that I'm moving straight on that, so I'm not gonna. I'll end up going red, not Amanda, right? So now, but I'm not a big one for plugging, by any stretch of thoughts. But I did bring out. I have bought out a book recently, and I'm going to be doing this another Facebook reading for this next week some point. But it's called Underground Haiku, and bought this out last week, and it's 50 odd poems basically, based about haikus done on an underground train station. So they wrote mostly before, just for, under wrote the lockdown last year, and obviously the brief spell last summer, and a few bases since then. So I'm going to read out to just two of them, and I'll do more next week. So, and these pieces are all in the same world, but not obviously not in the same story. Out of tune busker, pausing for a few moments, opens up a beer. Back from holiday, your bag won't stay on the rack, wanting to go back. That's my little haikus done.
Okay. So my next poem is called Always Darkest Before Dawn, and it's from my chapbook of the same name. Skipping through endless nights, trying to keep the spring in my step, letting the cocoon change me. When this is over, will I be a butterfly, or a moth with all my colours stripped bare, still searching for that elusive light? None of us will be who we were. Some changed for the better, others shone in their true light, judged by our actions, what we did on that endless night, holding out a torch or stealing all the candles. Every winter is a Christmas to make the cold more bearable. All storms lead to calm when the worst is over. All nights lead to daybreak, a new day will arrive. Decide who you want to be and hold on to your dreams. If you can't find your way through, remember, it's always darkest before dawn. Close your eyes and breathe. Open your mind and just be.
That's beautiful, Amanda. Now, the thing is, it's always interesting. I always believe, I know man would agree with me in this one. When you're living together as writers, and we are a creative couple, we're always writing poems out. And sometimes it'll be the case where I'll read a poem out to Amanda, and you'll agree with me. That's beautiful. Then like, I might read it out 4 months later. On this case, your case, Amanda, 12 months later. And I hadn't heard that piece in probably nearly a year. And I've forgotten how beautiful it was. And that was really, really touching.
Yes, one of the very few hopeful pieces that I've written.
Right, it's kind of the next piece I'm going to do now kind of follows on from that one, really. Although it was written some years ago, this piece. This one's about when, certainly not in the job I'm working at now, because obviously I want to keep off work, really. But the day job I'm doing, I've been in it for 8.5 years. And prior to that, I was working for a housing association for 6 months in Salford Quays in the Lowry Centre. And by all accounts, truth be told, I had a horrible time there. I was glad to leave. And this poem I'm going to read now is basically when I was late that last day when I was lunch, and then on the way back I walked across the quays. And this is in my second poetry book, Stealing Inspiration. And it's called Stealing Inspiration, of course. Sometimes I dream of the foghorn near the docks, whistling like a forgotten friend in your letterbox, walking home from work after I had left there for the last time. Remember the ringing of the last tram, freezing in the air like a photograph, or breathing too quickly. Aren't you glad you walked away? Sometimes I dream of the chime on the clock, which freezes at midday sometimes, weeping under spirals and underneath drop bolts. Dreaming of my heart, tied up in chains instead of knots, before I unpicked the lock and walked away without regret, stealing inspiration from the sunset. Over to Amanda.
Okay. So the next book is from my book that's called By My Book I Need Cats.
Right, Amanda, you do need to say, Amanda, obviously, before we go on to this, because there's a story behind this one. I don't like interrupting, you know you don't. Why title this book then?
You were interviewing, was it Rosie somebody?
Rosie Lawson. Hi, Rosie.
Yeah,
Hope you're watching this.
Yeah, that was it. And we got onto the subject of cats, and I just said my marketing should be just buy my book, I need cats, and then I decided to write a book called that. But there's only actually one poem in it about cats, but there are some illustrations of cats that just pop up in random places.
There's probably as many illustrations in the book as there actually is poems, probably, isn't there?
Not quite. So anyway, this poem's called Back to the Sea. They say I was lured by the hypnotic song, mesmerised by a haunted beauty, only seen above sea level. They say I was under the siren's control when my ship collided with the cliffs. Unable to steer, focused only on her. They say when I plunged to my death, I wasn't in my right mind, a man possessed by the call. The truth is, I was already dead. The song saved me, reminding me of who I was, even as my body was crushed. I embraced freedom for the first time as she looked on, distracting me from the pain, encouraging me to focus on those emerald eyes, with my mind clearer than ever, and my choice is my own. I chose to let my soul entwine with hers.
That's miserable. That's really miserable.
Well, that was the hopeful point I told you about.
Oh, I'm not even answer that.
No, it wasn't.
Right, okay, we'll move on. But bizarrely enough, man, do you think about that? That one was about the sea, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
my one before that was set on the Salford Quays dockyards. Now, there's a sea fever. I did sea flavour here because my next poem is a brand new poem. It's my last one for today for me. It's set on Hove, and Hove is like next door to Brighton. This is wrote on the coastline. And then was noticed, might remember from 5 minutes ago, Amanda's piece about Kiefer. This is a brand new poem about my couples. And this one, this is the book I'm working at the moment called Changing Carriages at Birmingham New Street, which load of poetic letters between this couple written in various towns and cities they have ventures in. So this one has got a homage to Bagpuss in it as well. If anyone remembers Bagpuss, the legendary early 1970s children's TV program. So this is homage to Bagpuss in Hove. Was it that third or fourth night, Sarah, during that month we lived in Hove, when my agent paid for us both to move there temporarily? That second summer we were together, and we stumbled onto that singer playing alone beside the coastline at the start of dusk. Do you remember me asking, Sarah, pausing in between songs, can either of us play an auto harp or a mandolin at the edge of the pier, a cup of hot chocolate barely keeping his aged fingers warm? I'd grew up watching it like you, although I couldn't begin to name any of the songs. He played one after the other. Rather than name Bagpuss's friends, from Professor Yaffle to the mice on the mouth organ, to Gabriel the Totem, mandolin. I see the singer's face even now, harmonica in his mouth, playing a melody, a song of the flea, and Charlie Mouse weaving, before eventually finishing off with the Bonnie King of Nowhere, opening up the curtain to unexpected love. You didn't get it. I should have seen it in the ash-coloured light, finding the nostalgia too strange, pausing for a few minutes, as if listening to something else, before hurrying on as before, underlining the differences to us both, that I only realised after you had gone.
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh,
Especially Bagpuss. I
I
love
know.
Bagpuss.
Oh, it's worth getting anybody seriously in this because we've been watching a bit of Bagpuss on YouTube recently. And I've gone and got the album. The album came out a couple of years ago. It's got absolute loads of tracks on it, and outtakes, and it's really beautiful folk music in the early 70s. Very weird, a bit odd in places, but I do like it. So, Amanda, you're concluding now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to read the second poem from By My Book I Need Cats, and it's called Carrying Your Dreams. They say she carries years of baggage inside that small leather handbag, scribbled down thoughts from time spent waiting in coffee shops and bars, days and nights that never lived up to her hopes, They say a little book of big ideas weighed her down over time, tucked away inside the old but sturdy bag, pulling down on her shoulder, making her appear to be weighed down. They tried to tell her it's time to replace scribbles for reality, except the dreams are all in her head, but she's not ready to wake up yet or throw away the pages like scattering ashes. They don't know this handbag contains more than paper, years of hopes and dreams ready to spill out. Sooner or later she'll carry them somewhere, to a place she can breathe new life, because she still believes in her broken dreams.
What a beautiful ending. I remember that one. So very melancholic. Certainly so. Now, obviously, that book's just come out, hasn't it? So,
Yeah.
where can people find all your works if they're that way inclined?
Well, that book's on Amazon. A lot of my books are on all sorts of places, but for that one, I just wanted to just have it on Amazon and nowhere else.
Yeah, my new book, The Underground Haiku, is just on Amazon as well. But I said I'll be doing a special reading for at some point next week. So. But anyway, guys and girls, I'm all done. Amanda, are you all done?
Yeah.
Now, anybody that knows us from our Reading in Bed podcast, what do we do to finish off with, Amanda?
We wave, but that's because there's no camera.
Well, tonight we're just going to wave anyway.
I'm not waving.
what did Amanda say? Man said, bye, Amanda, don't you?
Yeah.
So we'll see you all soon, guys. Stay
Bye,
safe.
everyone.
And Don Callis in Impact Wrestling. Stay over.